Hey guys, welcome to the Dogood podcast. I'm Rob Watson and I'm doing a solo episode today. It's been a while. I think the last one that I did was on how to start a podcast. I've kind of just been really enjoying interviewing people and getting the interviews out. I've had quite a few. It's been a really interesting year for that. I've had plenty of people actually reach out to me to want to be on the podcast, which is great. I obviously can't have them all on, but I'm able to sort of cherry pick the ones that I think would suit the theme of this podcast. So I've just been going at it full speed on them, and I think early in the year I think I even put out 4 in a month. I was sort of really chomping at the bit. I'm really excited to be sharing these things. They've actually slowed down a little bit recently because I became a father not long ago. And we had a baby little girl. Her name is Stella. She is the absolute joy of my life. She is, it really is. It's like the best thing that's ever happened to me. It really is. And I'm so joyed and excited to have in her life. It's also one of the most challenging things I've ever had to do, to become a father. And I often think that my life has been, and my old life's just disintegrated overnight. And anyone else who's became as the first child can probably relate to that. The change, and this little human requires everything from you, full attention all the time, all the way through the night. So it has been really testing for us, particularly the first few weeks, but she is now sleeping better. Even the other night she slept for 7 hours without a feed. Now, we were just like over the moon with that. Some people say they're lucky if they can get an hour, and we managed to get 7 hours. And I'm like, wow, did it feel good to get 7 hours sleep? Because at the beginning, we were probably getting about 2 hours of sleep a night for the first few weeks. It almost put us to a breaking point. And particularly for Ruth, God, I'm telling you what, talk about having a lot of respect, so much more respect for her. And, I already did, off the charts for her, but now it's gone to the moon. What women have to go through to bring life into this planet is phenomenal, and I don't think it gets the recognition that it should be in life. Other things are considered to be more successful or more worthy of acclaim, and for me there's nothing more rewarding, I think, for that. So Ruth, if you listen to this, or any mums that listen to this, thank you for what you do. I'm in awe of you. So yeah, I became a father. That's my highlight of 2020. It's been incredible. But anyway, what I'm talking about there is a little bit like what I'll talk about, or I'll tie it in with the theme that I'm talking about. So the theme of today's episode is to expect the unexpected, which, considering we are at the end of 2020 and we have gone through probably the greatest change of our lives, I would say that's pretty fair to say. Something's happened to us this year that has affected every single person walking the planet, pretty much, and something like that's not really happened since maybe major wartime. And even then, not all countries were involved in the war, or people would still be able to get together and be with loved ones and stuff. So yeah, expect the unexpected. But before I do talk about this, I just want to say, it's something I'm going to start to do more on this podcast, is I want to put a shout out to a company that I respect and support. So this isn't me getting the sponsorship. This is me giving a bit of airtime to companies that I really respect and I think are doing good in the world. And it's something that I want to continue to do. Maybe it can be the same one for a few episodes. It might be that I change them every time and I just give a shout out to them. So in this podcast, I'm actually going to be supporting Positive News Magazine. Now, those who've been on this journey with me since the beginning will know I had the editor of them on this podcast back on episode number 2, I think it was, all the way back 2 and a bit years ago. Well, anyway, Positive News is the magazine for good journalism and about good things. Now, that ties in perfectly with this podcast. When much of the media is full of doom and gloom, instead, Positive Media is basically the first media organisation in the world that is dedicated to quality, independent reporting about what's going right. And as a magazine and a movement, they are basically changing news for good. I'm 100% behind that. Something I talk about consistently in this podcast is the doom and gloom from the media. You put on the radio, you put on the news. Do you feel empowered by the stuff that you're hearing, or does it put you into a state of fear and angst? And I actually think with what's happened this year with COVID, now I believe the media has blown it out of proportion in terms of the effect that it's had on individuals. It's made you feel like people are just dropping in the streets, that all your neighbours are going to be affected with it and the world's coming to an end. That's the fear that the media puts in. And we need to remember that the media, the mainstream media, there is evidence out there and data that suggests that, negative news encourages people. Not only does it dumb them down, make them more likely to give up their freedoms, give up their own self-empowerment, but it actually makes them spend more money. It'll make them spend more money on stuff. That stuff that we don't need just to make us happy. Probably because it's put it into a bad state that we feel like we need a bit of, we need a distraction, and often spending money is a distraction. Well, anyway, the antidote to that is Positive News Magazine, something that I've read and followed for years. You'll get a subscription for it. You get it 4 times a year. It's a great way to spend a Sunday morning flicking through it. You will feel better for reading it to see what good things are going on in the world. That's why I set up this podcast. There's so much good happening in this world. There really is. And we just need to shine a light more on that. And the more of us that can switch off from the mainstream news, feel more self-empowered, willing to go forth in our life in a better, brighter direction, because there's so many green shoots popping up all over the place. And there's not even green shoots, there's fully fledged trees all over the place in terms of positive things to be looking at, to be getting on board with, to changing our outlook. And so if you want to support Positive News, if you want to subscribe to them, I'll include a link to them in this podcast, in the show notes, where you can subscribe or you can just find out a bit more about them. I know from doing the first episode with them, when I did all them years ago with Lucy, I had quite a few friends that signed up with them and are grateful to this day that I had that interview with Lucy. So if you're looking for a healthy dose of positivity in your life, check out Positive News. So there we go. There's my first kind of little plug for a company. I'm not receiving any money for this. Who knows, I might receive sponsorship in the future, and I'd be willing to take on sponsors, I think, for if they were the right company, right organisation. But for now, I'm actually just going to be supporting organisations that I believe in, that are doing good. Now, if you do want to support me, there is a way that you, the listeners, can support me. For literally less than the price of a cup of coffee each month, you could sign up and become a member on my Patreon page. It allows me to cover some of the costs for this podcast, and not just eventually cover the cost, but actually potentially cover some of the time that I invest in this, so I can continue to put out really great content, develop my craft even more, potentially do more interviews than I normally would, So if you feel the urge, and I'm really grateful for some of the people that have just recently become members of it, after the episode I did with Dr. Richard Halverson, I noticed straight away 2 people in the space of half an hour became members on there, so I'm really grateful to them. I appreciate your support. Thank you very much. So anyway, moving into today's episode, which is, as I said, to expect the unexpected. Now, I came across a quote from Woody Allen, which is basically, if you want to make God laugh, tell him about your plans. Now, isn't that true? I'm thinking the turn of this year, we were, me and Ruth, we've been trying to get pregnant for a while. It wasn't a simple process for us. It took us just about 2 years before Ruth was pregnant. Lots of trials and ups and downs, and lots of kind of things to go through for that. I'm really grateful for the experience. Now I've gone through it, but at the time it was challenging. Wondering why we couldn't have kids and why it wasn't happening for us. And in the end, I believe I talk about this in this podcast a lot about divine timing and trusting the process. And there's definitely a process to it. But then sometimes when you're in the thick of it, you don't see a way out of it, or you just want things to be easy. And that's pretty much from the ego's perspective. The ego just wants things to be easy. It wants us to win the lottery. It wants us all to be good looking. It wants us to have the fancy car. It wants us to be able to travel the world, all them things, and the perception of what easy seems to be like, and to be super healthy and all them things. When actually, what is the path that's best for our own spiritual evolution? And sometimes the challenges, the bumps in the roads, when you can't get through one door and you're knocking, but you're just being sent backwards. It's all for our own development and so we can live and learn. I believe we are here on this earth plane to live and learn and to grow for our own spiritual, for our soul's growth. And that's something that I believe true to my core. And so life isn't going to be easy at times. And we can have all these plans about what we want to do. Like, for instance, when we were first trying to have a child, we wanted to happen first time. So every time we got a negative pregnancy test, there was disappointment and there was confusion, and you're thinking you're doing all the right things, but you're trying to do all the right things, but it's not happening. But for us, we went through a 2-year journey where there was so much growth in that for us personally and in a relationship. We managed to heal plenty of old wounds there, where if we wouldn't have, then we wouldn't have done that. And the baby just appeared, our lives would have been completely full and chaotic with the child being in, and we wouldn't have the opportunity to look closer at some of the things that were out of alignment with ourselves and on our relationship, and we were able to work through that with the right support and help. I've spoke plenty of times on this podcast about being open and talking about our feelings and our emotions. We've seen couple therapy for many years, and I've been in my own therapists for God well over a decade, and I find it's a great way for me to articulate what's going on inside of me. I'd said in the past on this podcast that sometimes I'd find it challenging to say what was really going on. All I would say is that I wasn't feeling good, I was feeling bad, and speaking to people has given me a platform to be able to, work through some of them emotions, to understand where they're coming from. And I would encourage anyone who's willing or open to go down that route. I don't think there's as much stigma as there is to it in the past. Like, I've got a lot of friends over in America, and they're completely open about this thing, and they have been for decades. I think there's a shift happening, but there's definitely an element in this country of feeling like talking about your feelings is a weakness. When actually, is it worth, do you want to just bottle it all up? Do you want to just hold on to all those feelings inside? Realize what it's turned into? Like, illnesses pop out from, trapped emotions, like cancer and all sorts of things can manifest when we're not dealing with some of the root issues within us. So kind of went sideways with that, but I think it's all worth hearing or worth me talking about, one or the other. I often find this podcast anyway is an opportunity. It's very healing for me just talking into this microphone and knowing that there's people at the other end that are going to be listening. I find that and I know I love to have just conversations with people, but it's nice just to be able to just talk into him and let things go. I've let plenty of things go in this podcast, release, take away the shame of stuff. I think we hold so much shame in ourselves from stuff, so the more we can be open, then all the good. So I think I was talking about us getting pregnant, and ended up we had a baby. And the thing is, if it would have happened early on, then it meant that Stella wouldn't have been born on 10/10/2020, which I've got to say has got to be the best date of birth that I can think of. Very auspicious, I believe, and she came in at the right timing. It's funny, I don't really talk about this stuff often, or I haven't shared it much, but anyway, I remember around about 2015 coming up to, or was it 2016? 2015-2016 Christmas time, I remember getting feelings and emotions and like almost felt like messages, as if like, I remember I'm a big one for me for going out looking at the stars. Like, I will go out, particularly in wintertime, I love going out and looking at the star systems, Pleiades star systems, looking at all sorts of, things in the sky. I've got so much wonder. I've got this app on my phone called, I can't even remember the name of the app on the phone. But anyway, it's this star app, and it tracks all the stars around. And when I see a new constellation or a new thing, I'm like, wow, I'll zoom in and find out that information about it. Well, anyway, I would kind of look to the stars, and sometimes I feel like I would get like messages or thoughts and feelings coming to me. And I really got this distinct message and feeling around about 2015 that from like, it was like as if she, and I believe it was telling her, say, I'm ready to come in when you are. And these were the feelings that I was getting. And here's an interesting thing. So when we found out we were pregnant, It came out of the blue, really, because we had to do some treatment. We went with an amazing hospital, and I've got to say hands up to the NHS and for the support they've given us through the whole process, all the way through the pregnancy, or the midwives, or the everyone, has been incredible. But we had some treatment to get pregnant, and it actually worked first time for us, and we were amazed. It was a treatment called IUI, and you potentially get 3 goes, and if that doesn't work, you then move on to IVF. And I kind of thought, oh, well, you know what, we'll just do the IUI because you might as well give it a go, and I think there's a 15% chance, 10, 15, 20% chance that it might work, where with IVF there's a 50% chance that it might work. So we did the IUI, and Ruth went and did a pregnancy test in the morning, and she came in and she said to me, it's not worked. And we were obviously really disappointed. We were like, that's the first time we'd had like the assistance for that. The other time it was us trying, we were going for tests, we were finding out if there was anything wrong with us. It came back there was nothing wrong with us. It was just they couldn't find out why it wasn't happening for us. So she comes in, she shows me, and she's like, oh, it's not. Well, she didn't even show me. She left it into the bathroom, and then she comes in, and I kind of give her, we're holding on to each other, giving each other a hug. But the tears didn't come. But in the past, the tears have come. And then we kind of get up, and we're being quite philosophical about it. And I've got to be careful as well. Sometimes I can be too philosophical about stuff, and just, sometimes I just need to keep my mouth shut and just to, listen to someone else. I think that's what sometimes us guys can want to fix everything and just try and be super positive. And sometimes it's a time for not that. It's allowing emotions to flow and just listening. I'm getting better at that, of just listening rather than feeling like I've got to try and fix stuff. Because who am I to be fixing someone else? They're more than capable of fixing themselves. I can only fix me, and maybe I don't even need fixing. Maybe no one needs fixing. Maybe everything is just the way it's supposed to be. Anyway, we get up, we're about to go downstairs. Ruth goes back into the bathroom, and then she shouts me, and she goes, Rob, come here a minute. I go in, and she's like, can you see 2 lines on there on the pregnancy test? I'm like, yeah, like one's really faint. Like, I said, well, does that mean we're pregnant, And we're doing some Google searches, and it basically says that if there's 2 lines, you are 100% pregnant, because it releases a particular hormone into the female, and when that goes on the urine and it goes onto the strip, it shows up. And I was just like, wow. I was kind of like, is this really happening? Is this, something that I'd wanted so much for 2 years, and then all of a sudden it's happened, and then Ruth's like wanted to double check, and so she's ringing the hospital and they're saying, yeah, it will be, but take another test in a couple of days just to be sure. So we head out that day. We're super excited. I think it was on a Tuesday. And then we buy another test, like a better one, more like a proper electronic one or something anyway. And then we do it again on the Thursday morning. And we always knew that we were going to do it early. And Ruth got up, I don't know, about 6 o'clock. And I heard her get up. So I just went out into the landing. And people that know me that I've got a design company, and I work up in the loft. And we've got this open plan loft space. And we've got skylights coming in. I really absolutely do love the space the way it is, where the light comes into our hallway. Well, I went and stood in the hallway. And I was below at the bottom of our ladder that we've got to get into the loft, and I was looking up to the skylight. I noticed that it was there. And our cat, Bo, who's this lovely little Persian ginger cat that we've had for 13 years, she climbs up on the ladder about almost to like my chest height. And while Ruth's in there, it's just like meowing, like going all sorts, like it was really trying to get my attention. And she got my attention. I'm like, it's okay, Bo, what's up, And it was like as if she was encouraging me to look up. And I looked up, and it was about 6 o'clock. It was still dark, and I could see stars, a couple of stars, like right bang up above me on the skylight, looking through the skylight. So I said before, I've got this app. So I got the app. I wanted to check what it was, and it was the Vega system, the Vega star system. And like I said, about before, feeling like I was getting messages from the stars and stuff like that. And then, literally a few moments after that, Ruth comes out to me and she says, I'm pregnant. it's absolutely a positive, And I remember just feeling like so amazed and so at joy, and remembering that moment that when I was out in the start looking at the stars 4 or 5 years earlier, I'm feeling like I was getting these messages from the stars saying, I'm ready to come in, Daddy. This is what it felt like. And I've always thought, and anyone, this isn't, I've always said to everyone, I always knew that we were going to have a little girl. I always knew in my heart that we were going to have a little girl. And that's what came. We ended up having a little girl. We didn't find out. We waited till the moment. But I knew in my heart that it was. And I feel that she's got this connection with the stars. And she's come in, and that's one of the reasons we've called her Stella, because Stella means star. A middle named Ray, so I like to think, she's a ray of light as well, and she's already definitely a ray of light for us. So that's me just sharing that, and my journey of that, and to expect the unexpected. Because for us, when you're starting out with something, whether you're planning to set up a business, or you're trying to get pregnant, or you're working out some holiday adventure that you want to go on, we have all these plans, and I think we can be too rigid and strict in them. And when things don't work out the way we want them to, then that's when issues arise. That's when there's that thing inside us. We're trying to control stuff. We're trying to control stuff when actually life is perfect as it is. That nursery rhyme that goes, row, row, row your boat gently down the stream. Merrily, 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 life is but a dream. When you listen to those words, row your boat gently, gently, down the stream, as if life is just a flow. Do it merrily. Life is just a dream. Those who've listened to me on this podcast have spoken about how I believe we're just, we are coming from the stars, and our soul exists beyond this physical realm, and we're down here for a short period of time to learn, to grow, to evolve. So there's messages everywhere, yet from the ego's perspective, we are trying to control every single aspect of our lives. Everything. And because of that, we're blocking off the wonder that is available to us in every moment. There's also, as I said about divine timing, our little girl appeared on the 10th of October at exactly the right time. She came early, 9 days early. Again, that's another great way to let go, to expect the unexpected. We weren't going in, we didn't have a planned C-section or anything like that. It was a natural birth in the end. That brought some challenges up going through the birth. I might even mention that shortly about the unexpected. And you have to have that element, you have to surrender. I think that's what I'm getting at with a lot of this stuff. We have to surrender. And for me, the year of 2020 is about surrendering to life's flow more. And the brakes have been put on massively. So many of our plans have been cancelled. Businesses have gone under. People are losing their jobs. People can't see people. All the holidays have been cancelled. Events, everything. Could you imagine a year when Glastonbury Festival would be cancelled? But that's just a drop in the ocean compared to what everything else has been cancelled. You just wouldn't imagine it. Something like that would go on. That's a little bit the theme that I'm going on here, is about us like not having. I think we should get excited about stuff. Excitement, I believe, is the organising principle of our lives. When something excites us and we want to, I think we need to follow that. I remember this is one of the key themes for me from someone that I follow called Bashar. And that is basically to follow our excitement. Excitement is there to tell us what we need to do next. And it's important to remember the difference between excitement and anxiety. Often I'm pulled from pillar to pillar through anxiety each day, and I have to center myself back into my being. How do I do that? I take a moment to breathe. I take a moment to recognize that those are just thoughts that are attempting to tell me that I need to do this and that and this next, when actually it's like, no, I don't need to do that. I also use an Eckhart Tolle technique of just bringing my awareness into my hands, into my feet, taking a breath deep into my stomach. All those things allow me just to center, even if it's just for a few moments. And one thing I've realized from becoming a dad is I used to have a very clear structure to my day. I'd get up, I'd make myself a drink, I'd meditate, I'd go for a run, I'd do these things, the baby arrives, all them things are pretty much out the window. I'd normally run twice a week. I've basically been on about 3 runs in about 2 months, but that's all good. That is all, but that's all good for me anyway. My trick now is to find those places of calm and center in the day. So if I'm making some food, I'll just be aware, be in that moment as best I can where I'm cutting carrots, rather than thinking I've got to chop these super fast and I've got to get it all in the pan with everything else. It's like, it's okay. Let's just slow it down. If it takes me an extra minute, that's okay. That just to like take that step back and be like, what is the rush anyway? We're all on this path of going, I believe there's a term like, going nowhere fast, of just on this treadmill of life, going along with everyone else. And this year has shown us more than any other year that doesn't work. I remember when all the lockdown first kicked in around March time, at that time, and I just found out that we were about to become a dad. So I was getting into this zone of thinking, right, okay, I need to be super productive and I need to be really on it with my business and other things that I was doing. I need to get ahead of the curve on things, make sure I've got, enough money in place to look after Ruth and the baby. And these are all the things that will swirl up in me. COVID hits, lockdown kicks in. I work in the design industry. I work in the arts, sports and the health. The arts have been obliterated. Sports have been obliterated. Health has stayed relatively strong, which has given us, a bit of a foothold in. But a lot of projects that we had just got cancelled, delayed. So I'm kind of left there thinking, I'm more than willing to be working to do stuff, yet there's nothing there for me to do. And I had to surrender in that moment and think, well, this is just the way it's supposed to be. And in that moment, we basically ended up having about 3 months of not working at all and some other things in place. We took advantage of the mortgage thing, not paying the mortgage for a few months, and that felt amazing. And the realizations that we were getting from that is I talk about this anyway, about not just living to pay bills and stuff like that. And I don't have a big expensive mortgage, but I do have a mortgage. And the thought of X amount of money going out every month, and when we had that window of 3 months where it didn't, it was amazing to think, wouldn't it be great if we didn't have a mortgage at all? And we just used what equity we built up in our house and downsized to something smaller. Again, that path's always bigger car, bigger house. As if it's considered to be, you're unsuccessful if you downsize to go something small. It's as if you can only do that when you're retired. But we've been thinking a lot more, well, why do we want to live that way? I don't want to go chasing after the next thing, the next bigger thing, especially if it means that I'm going to be I have to work or put money into it for the next 10, 15, 20, 30 years. I value money. Of course I do. We need it all to go along in our lives presently. But I also value my time. And I feel for me, one of the greatest gifts I can give to be Stella is to be there as a father, to be present there for her, to not feel like I'm going out the door, working 50, 60 hours a week just to be a provider. I don't just want to be like that. And I've, engineered my life very differently the past 5 years. I used to go out and work 50, 60 hours a week. I used to travel 10 hours on top of that a week traveling. I'd be stressed all the time from the way I worked. Now I'm not stressed all the time from the way I work. I've got stress from other things, which, that's where the surrender comes in and just allowing things just to move and flow. But I believe the greatest gift I can give to Stella is for me to be there for her now. And Ruth's the same. And we consider that we kind of want to both have great passions in our life. My design company has been one of my most exciting things I've ever done, and it's taken me loads of places, and I've worked on great projects and done amazing stuff and continue that. But there's also other things that I'm interested in as well, like this podcast. And I've recently just started baking cakes and selling cakes, healthy treats, healthy alternative, all paleo, and using the eggs from our chickens in the back. Now that really excites me, baking cakes. I'm not going to be a millionaire from it. I'm not going to make the money that I do from running a design company, but it's exciting for me. I like to be off a computer. I like to be in the kitchen making stuff. And it felt great to go and deliver some of these cakes to people that were having parties that weren't able to normally enjoy party, like a birthday celebrations for a cake anyway, because this lady had certain food intolerances for gluten and dairy and grains. And that's my thing with this. I'm using mostly organic ingredients. Like I said, I'm using the eggs from the chickens. I'm just, I'm making, my flour is like almond flour. I'm putting sweet potato in, I make this chocolate avocado cake basically. And, there's dates, sweet potato, avocado. And people say, Ruth said it's the nicest chocolate cake she's ever eaten. And maybe she'll say that because she's my wife. But actually other people have said that to me as well. But I get a real joy from that, making and baking cakes and seeing that. So, I've gone off on one there. But what it is about me. For me, time is important. Having time to do the things that I love, that excite me. I love to garden. I love to spend time with people. I don't want to just work my way to this idea in the future that then I'm going to have more time. You might have more time when you're 65 or when you're 70, but will you have your health? And are you just always living in the future? I had this feeling a while ago that I was going to write down on 2 pieces of paper. On one piece of paper, it was going to be past and future, and on the right, on the other piece of paper was now. And the past and future piece of paper, I'm going to light it with a match, and the now one is I'm going to roll it up and I'm going to put it inside one of my houseplants, because that for me is my way of symbolizing growth. I want to grow that state of being more to live in the now. The idea of the past and the future is all an illusion. It's all a trick of the mind. To think that, like, if you think you're going to be happy in the future when you've got something, maybe when you think you're at your ideal weight, when you're in this relationship, you've got this money, you're kidding yourself. You're absolutely kidding yourself. It's in this moment right now, as you're listening to me, this is where the beauty of it all is. This is where happiness is, and this is where the abundance of joy can overflow in the present moment. Now, I'm speaking from experience-ish. Like, there's plenty of people that I follow. Michael Singer, Eckhart Tolle, Ram Dass, a few other people who are living masters in that, where I get glimpses of it. And when I get those glimpses of it, it's as if a huge weight is released from me. And I realise that I've been going about everything the wrong way in my life. And in fact, it's inside of us. That's where the answers are. And I think from COVID, from this year, so much uncertainty has happened. Everyone's plans have been cancelled. Millions of people losing their jobs. People going hungry. Real crisis time. And normally when we'd be able to look outside of ourselves for some level of certainty, and it's not there. Whether it's the fear of getting ill and dying, or it's a fear of losing your job, or not having enough food, or being homeless. All very valid feelings for people to experience this year, and it's happened on a mass event like no other, really. Like I said, the media certainly has over-egged it all. I don't doubt that. But I trust the timing of it, and it may be an opportunity for us all to look deeper. We pretty much ignore death, don't we? It's all going to happen to us all, but we go through our lives trying to ignore it. I do know some people that won't take their own grandkids to funerals because they don't think the kids should see that. And I'm like, that's nonsense in my book. Birth and death are just as equally important. It's and I heard someone, Michael Singer, actually say about death, like death is a once in a lifetime opportunity. We can have a level of excitement about it. You don't want to miss that one. And so, yeah, a lot of uncertainty has been taken away from us. So, and I believe that certainty now is sending us inwards to, I don't know how many years, but I imagine so many people have gone towards like meditation or all sorts of things to try and find their center, to realize that why the chaos is around us. It's almost like we need to be in the eye of the storm. And that's the only way we're going to pass through a lot of the challenges that we're facing right now, is to find our center, to be in that place. And from that, to surrender. As I said, that nursery rhyme, to go slow, to go with the flow. I know from my life in the past, one of the reasons I was so stressed and unhappy in my late 20s is I was going upstream all the time. I felt like my feet were just wading in like knee-high waters, choppy waters, trying to like struggle and get anywhere, when all I had to do was let go. Yet my mind wouldn't allow me to let go, because it felt like if I let go, I failed, or I was going to lose, or, all these things that come on. Yet we just have to trust, if we can, trust in the flow of life more. And I've had times this year where I've been pushed right to the edge of that. Like, I'll be honest, my business has been squeezed to the absolute edge, like absolute edge of existence. And it's just bounced back. Now, that was really uncomfortable, especially as I'm about to become a father. I'm thinking, well, I've created this life for me. I work from home. I want to be there for my child, and I want to do these things. I don't want to have to go and get a job somewhere else. And that was some of the things that were coming up for me. What is my company going to go under? And it's not, thankfully. And what I do think anyway, on the 31st of December, close to midnight, or as we pass midnight into 2021, all of us need to put one of our hands up in the air, lean forward, and with that hand that is above the air, lean it down and give yourself a pat on the back. Everyone who makes it through 2020, and it's going to be 99.9% of people that start the year, or maybe 99 or whatever, will make it. And we've done it. And if you can make it through this year, we can make it through any year. But other things that have challenged me, I remember our beloved cat, Kingsley, our little boy, he passed away. He'd been with us for 13 years. I'd spent practically every day with him. And he died 10 days before Stella was born. Again, I don't believe in coincidences. I don't believe that was accidental that he died then. It was like as if he'd been with us that long, and it was his time of saying, right, okay, time for me to go. I'm creating space for Stella, who's certainly going to take up more energy. Another thing that happened to us, we got burgled back in January, and that's been really unsettling. Actually, they came in, they went straight through the house, pinched laptops, other stuff, ripped all the cupboards open. We felt extremely violated, and then they attempted to come back the week later as well, but thankfully they didn't get in second time. That was extremely unsettling for us. We didn't want that or plan that, but it was very interesting. I think it happened on like the 19th of January, and then exactly 1 month later, on the 19th of February, we found out that we were having Stella. I find that interesting, and often I believe that the break-in was symbolising a breakthrough in our lives. Might not be what you want. Like I said, from the ego's perspective, you just want to live in peace and calm and tranquility, but that isn't what life's about, and it's made us be more aware of that things. So yeah, it wasn't comfortable, but one thing I'd like to say is that I believe, like, I heard this analogy as well from Bashar, and it's called the watermelon seed effect. And I believe millions of us, billions of us, have been pushed through the watermelon seed effect this year. And that is, imagine taking a watermelon seed, sticking it between your thumb and your main finger, and squeezing it as hard as you possibly can. Now, I believe we've been that seed this year. We've been getting squeezed and squeezed and squeezed. But the thing is, though, when you take a watermelon seed and you squeeze it, because it's wet and it's a little bit like greasy for effect, that seed will shoot out. And it'll shoot out in an unexpected direction. And I believe so many of us are shooting out in unexpected directions now because of what's happened. I understand there's many people that have lost their jobs and realise that there's no new jobs to go for. They're going back to college, to university, to retrain in things that they never thought they would have had the opportunity to do if it wasn't for COVID. I'm hearing that a lot from colleges and unis, that more people are enrolling because the jobs aren't out there. So it's encouraging these people to go in different directions. Like I said with me before, we're really seriously thinking about, I don't want a mortgage. I want my monthly bills to be as minimum as possible. Like, everyone who knows me knows I value good food. That's non-negotiable. Good, healthy, well-sourced food is a must for me and my family. But the other things around that, I want to minimize them. And not because I'm a tight arse, but I am a minimalist, and I want a balance between spending the times on the things that I really love and enjoy, but I don't want to be working all my life to just pay for those things. So we've discussed about downsizing and living a more simple life without the expectation or pressures of paying off mortgages or loans or So that's something for us to think about, and I kind of feel like I'm going to wrap up on that one. It's gone on longer than I expected, but this year's definitely been, to expect the unexpected. And I think if we can just go forward with that mantra, even forward in our lives, yes, have plans, but I think it's really important that we're fluid with them. That if something doesn't unfold at the right time for us, don't think of it as a failure. Think of it as it's an obstacle on our path, something that we need to face. It could be that we've got to climb over it and there's something for us to learn from that. Or we could be thinking that we have to go in a different direction. And sometimes just getting a level of excitement and going doing something new, something different, might not turn into this grand plan, but just having that level of excitement and then going in a different direction is then going to steer you to go off and do something else completely different that you never thought you would. You got the inspiration for one thing, but then all of a sudden as you're doing that, something even more amazing pops into your mind and you want to do that. So I'm going to leave it there. This is the last podcast of 2020. Seems like a fitting one. Like I said, we hit 23:59 seconds on the 31st of December to give ourselves all a pat on the back as we made it through. We made it through probably one of the most life-changing years ever. One that I believe will be the catalyst for so much change, that we'll look back and go, this was the year. This was a year everything changed. And in a way, it's up to us to decide if it's for the better or for the worst. There can be plenty of different timelines ahead, different train tracks to go on. Which train track do you want to be on? Which path do you want to go down? We've got opportunity to change our lives and really reset stuff. Like I remember saying to you before, like my company went right to the edge. But you know what? There was a real surrender in me as well from that. In the past, there wasn't so. But because this thing's been happening to everyone, it took the weight off my shoulders of thinking, well, you know what? If my company disintegrates, that's it. I've done my best for 14 years. But if it goes, so be it. I can let that go and something else will appear for me. That's not happened. It's kind of like bounced back. I kind of had to go to that edge. And I've talked about this in the previous podcasts, that freedom is on the other side of our comfort zone. It's us pushing to our edges, and so many of us gone to our edges, but we have to go through. We can't fight with reality. So many of us are fighting this, all the lockdowns. I want to go out, I want to do these things, I want my life to be back to normal. And I don't want to talk about this new normal because I don't particularly like that term, but there's been so many things that we were doing just getting swept up in stuff. This is a year to really focus and be clear and think about the simple things in our lives that are really important to us. Like I said, me being a dad is now, that's my job. That's my priority now, is being a good father. I'm sure that I'll pass stuff on to her that I wouldn't have wanted to, unconscious beliefs, patterns, so forth. But I'm going to love her as best I can, and I'm certain that she's going to teach me far more than I'm going to teach her. But for the time being, I'm going to be there for 100%. I'm going to guide her. I'm going to encourage her to be the person she can be or who she is. And you know what? Here's something I'll finish with. She was born, and I had her in my arms. Ruth had to, she had to go off and have, and be in a different room for a short period of time. And I had Stella with me for like 20-25 minutes. And I unbuttoned my shirt and I had her tucked in on my chest. She was close to me and she was so sweet and just wonderful to be. She's just looking up at me with these big eyes. And I remember saying to her, I said to her, I promise to help you to not forget who you really are and to remember where you're from. And I'm going to do my absolute best to impart all the wisdom that I've received and pass it on to her. But I'm going to do it in the best possible way without forcing it on her and just encouraging her. I just want her to go up and be the best that she can, But to be her, to be herself. Like, not to be a version of me that I want her to be. So anyway, there we go. We've made it through the episode. Thank you for listening. Like I said, check out Positive News Magazine if you've not already. You want good journalism about good things. It's a really great movement. They're changing the way news is for the good, and it needs to happen massively. They're growing, which is great, but it needs to go bigger. It'd be great if they had a YouTube channel as well. It'd be nice if they had something for people to tune into and to listen to. Maybe we can do something like that. And also, again, I'm supporting positive news in this episode. If you want to support me, you can do through my Patreon page. For as little as a price, a cup of coffee each month, you can become a member along with other people to help me to continue to do this. I've said I'd do this all for free, but I would also love to, one thing I've noticed from my work and Raw this year, you can feel the squeeze from stuff, and I think it's important to start thinking about getting your side hustles on and thinking about other things that can generate money. Like I said, I started baking, a little bit of money coming from through that. I've started to do some teaching, money's coming through that. I'm doing this podcast, I get a little bit of money from that. It's just building extra pots so you don't have to be so reliant on one thing. So if that one thing gets pulled from you, and it really did get yanked underneath me for quite some time, it meant that it pushed me in these other directions. Like I said, the watermelon seed effect. It forced me, if everything was hunky-dory and rosy, I probably would have thought, I'll do that next year. I'll pursue that next year when things calm down. But actually, those things push me to do it. So anyway, if you want to support this podcast, please do. I love you. I hope you've all had a safe and well year and are super excited for 2021. I think we're going to have a better year. So anyway, guys, until next time, have a good one.